What's going on, YouTube? Um, this isn't meant to sound doom and gloom. It's mostly meant to make sure that everyone knows what's going on. Maybe bounce ideas off one another, help prepare the best way possible. I'm sure most of you know about the BRICS nations. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. BRICS. If you don't, those nations are talking about getting away from the US dollar as the global currency, creating their own currency. It's kind of unclear what that might look like. One thing that is clear is those countries, Russia, India to a degree, and China in particular, buy a lot of gold. They hold a lot of gold. They value, all those countries value metal. You have people like India, the Indian people that value gold and silver. A lot of the citizens buy a lot of silver. And I suspect if these countries are buying gold, they're probably buying some silver too. It's not talked about a lot. That's just my speculation. And nobody really knows how much they have. They don't divulge a lot of that. But we do know that they're heavy on metal. As most of you probably know, we are the world reserve currency. So, and we have been for some time. And if that were to change, a hyperinflationary situation could become far, far more likely. When right now we're just looking at an inflationary situation. Then you have the petrodollar, right? Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, if you want oil, you have to give them these, okay? This is how you buy your oil from Saudi Arabia. And what a lot of you may not know is when we struck that deal with Saudi Arabia, we struck the deal that you have to use this to purchase oil from Saudi Arabia, which is a pretty big player in the production. And in turn, we would provide them protection during military conflicts with other countries. Now, what's interesting about that is earlier this year, Saudi Arabia talked about two things. One was trading oil for other currencies, and two was joining the BRICS nations. So I guess it would be BRICSS, BRICSS. I don't know what you'd call it at that point, but now there's talks of Iran potentially attacking Saudi Arabia, which is an interesting situation because we're obligated to protect them based on our own interest of the oil flowing to us. And they're not too hot on our currency anymore. So I wonder what that would look like. That could be very, very interesting. So I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. That's kind of disturbing. What would happen in that scenario? Another thing that I look at is our military's weaker than it was, right? We've lost a number of personnel because they didn't want to, I have to be careful how I say this, they didn't want to follow certain protocols that were forced upon them. And on the other side of that, you have a recruitment issue where not a lot of people are signing up compared to, other years. Largely in part probably because of how woke the military has become. I mean, if you're not going to let the troops be troops, well, why do you want to be troops? So just some interesting things going on in the world. And if this were to happen in Saudi Arabia, and we had to defend them with a weakened military, then there's the Russia issue. If something happens there, I mean, that could be pretty bad. And on top of that, the fuel crisis and the oil crisis everyone's talking about, the shortages, I imagine would not get better if there was conflict in Saudi Arabia. One could just imagine that might disrupt things a bit, which would drive the costs up even more on everybody that needs fuel, which is everybody, whether directly or indirectly. Just things to think about. For me, I'm going to keep stacking as much as I can with all these things that you're looking at. Yes, even this. Obviously, I'm going to stack these heavier. But, if you struggle to afford gold, which is probably arguably the safest bet, because these other nations are purchasing so much gold at incredible rates. Remember, silver, while it is an industrial metal, the history of silver is a monetary metal. It's been a monetary metal, and it still is, arguably still is a monetary metal. I know it's an industrial metal, but it is still a monetary metal, and it has a long history of being a monetary metal. And if you can't afford gold, but you can afford silver, I'm not a financial advisor, but I think that might be a good move, because silver generally follows the gold. So if gold goes up in value, silver may trail. It may take longer to catch up, but it usually follows. So just something to think about. Hopefully there's not more conflict in the world. We certainly don't need that right now. Nobody does. Doesn't do anybody any good. Hopefully this wasn't too gloom and doom for you guys. That wasn't my intent. Just want to make sure everyone knows, what's potentially going on, and is doing what they can to protect themselves and move forward. Constitutional Stacker, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me you love me, tell me you hate me, tell me whatever you want to tell me. Appreciate you guys' support. Constitutional Stacker coming at you. Keep stacking.